Savannah Guthrie's mother, Nancy Guthrie, missing day 38. This as tonight we learn her last known whereabouts may be tracked through her hearing aids. Not only that, how is a vanishing car taking center stage in the search for Nancy Guthrie and an alleged sighting of Nancy Guthrie, quote, south of the border? Is it real? It certainly cannot be discounted. And also, Savannah Guthrie's sister, Annie Guthrie, has been the subject of accusations, insults, and more online, even suggestions she had something to do with her mother's kidnap and that she is actually the porch guy. Much of this is centering on the fact that one of the family vehicles was towed away and processed. That has somehow been extrapolated into theories that she really is the perp. Tonight, answers to where is Annie Guthrie's vehicle. Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. I want to thank you for being with us. Now, special guest Heather Barnhart. You know her well. She is a digital forensic expert with Celebrite and the SANS Institute. One of the digital forensic investigators that cracked the Brian Kohberger case, may he rot in hell, co-author of Practical Mobile Forensics, now in its 4th edition. There's that much demand for it. Heather Barnhart, thank you for being with us. Hearing aids. I'm now figuring out that hearing aids can be tracked. Many people point out that Nancy Guthrie's hearing aids were left behind, but we're also learning she may have had a second pair that she was wearing at the time she was kidnapped. How can that help us find Nancy Guthrie?
That's a little tricky, Nancy. That's the issue. Her phone, everything associated to those hearing aids, because they pair through Bluetooth. You can actually use hearing aids as you would AirPods. You could FaceTime, you can listen to music through them. So that connectivity is important to the phone. However, just like we talked about Wi-Fi in the past and Bluetooth, a suspect's
Okay, wait a
device...
minute. Heather, you are talking to us mere mortals. So you're going DEFCON 4 on me. Something you just said, okay, my husband played various sports, including football in high school, and something happened and he lost partial hearing in one ear. So sometimes he uses an aid for the ear, but he has a set. So sometimes when we're listening to a book on tape, we actually split the hearing aid so we can listen. No matter how busy it is, it can be an airport, yes, and we can still hear the book on tape. It can be anything, and we can hear through that hearing aid. Now, I think that's what you just said. You can listen to music.
Exactly. They
okay,
become
could
your
you just
AirPods.
start over and slow it down? Slow it down. Go
Sure.
25 mph instead of 100 mph.
Okay. Think of modern hearing aids as you would AirPods or headphones. You plug them into your ears, you can listen to audiobooks, you can listen to music, you can FaceTime. That requires a connection to a device. So if I have hearing aids in right now, and Nancy, you and I are in the same room, your phone could possibly ping my Bluetooth of my hearing aids because I could connect to yours. I can connect to mine. So anything that it's available for connections, this happens. If you try to connect your headphones and you see other people's headphones around in the name of their phone and their computer, it's just like that.
Okay, I'm learning a lot right now. Starting the hearing aids of Nancy Guthrie's, a lot of people have spares. My mom, who lives with us, she's got 3 sets of hearing aids. Modern hearing aids can be tracked using smartphone apps and Bluetooth technology. They can also show historical data. Heather Barnhart talking about historical data. All that means is, here's an example. We have Life 360, and I can make it go to historical data, which means if I want to find out where's Lucy, and I see, oh, she's having frozen yogurt. If I hit historical data, I can see she went to school, she went to McDonald's, and now she is at the tutors, and now she's having frozen yogurt, and she's on her way home. Historical, I can see the history of where she's been. So how would that help me?
It would be the key to everything on Nancy's location if she had her phone with her. So her phone is tied to those hearing aids. And the fact that her phone is left behind, I'm sure investigators looked to see if they could ping that and get a location. And they either did and they're holding that close to them, or they fell short. But if she had her phone with her, you would be able to do exactly what you just said, Nancy.
Nancy Grace has just dropped a shocking update in a case that has already left many people confused, angry, and desperate for answers. What started as a missing mother investigation has now exploded into something much bigger, with legal battles, accusations, and a $1.35 million lawsuit shaking the entire case. For 38 days, a mother has been missing, and the deeper investigators dig, the stranger everything seems to get. Before we get into the details, I want you to do two quick things. First, type CT in the comments so I know you're watching and supporting the channel. And also tell me what country or city you're watching from. It's always interesting to see how far these stories travel and where people are following from. And if you're new here, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next updates on this story. Now here, where things start to get intense. For more than 5 weeks, investigators in the state of Arizona have been searching for a missing mother named Nancy Guthrie. Friends say she was devoted to her family and had a routine that rarely changed. But suddenly, she vanished without a trace. No confirmed sightings, no contact with loved ones, just silence. As the days passed, concern quickly turned into fear. Local authorities launched an investigation, and the case soon drew national attention. The man leading the investigation, Sheriff Chris Nanos, began coordinating search teams, interviews, and evidence collection across several locations connected to the disappearance. But just when people thought the investigation would slowly bring answers, something unexpected happened. A $1.35 million lawsuit was suddenly filed involving Sheriff Nanos. The lawsuit claims that actions taken during the investigation may have caused serious legal and professional damage. While investigators insist they are focused on finding the missing mother, the lawsuit has now created a wave of controversy that many say could complicate the case even further. Legal experts say when something like this happens in the middle of an active investigation, it can shift attention, create pressure on law enforcement, and even slow down critical processes. And that's exactly why this story is now making headlines. Renowned crime commentator Nancy Grace weighed in on the situation, saying the timing of the lawsuit raises serious questions. According to her, when investigators are already racing against time in a missing person case, any legal chaos surrounding the investigation can make an already difficult search even harder. But the biggest question still remains. Where is Nancy Guthrie? Investigators have interviewed neighbors, family members, and people who last saw her before she disappeared. Search teams have examined areas around her home and locations she was known to visit. But after 38 days, there is still no confirmed answer about what happened. And now, with this massive lawsuit entering the picture, some people are starting to wonder whether the focus of the investigation might be shifting at the worst possible time. What do you think about this situation? Again, drop CT in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, because in the next part we're going to look at the timeline of the disappearance and the moments that investigators say could hold the key to this entire mystery. The timeline of this disappearance is where the case begins to raise even more serious questions. But before we continue, if you're still watching, type CT in the comments so I know you're here. And tell me what country or city you're watching from. These stories reach people all over the world, and it's always interesting to see where everyone is tuning in from. And if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do, because the details in this case keep unfolding. Now, let's go back to the beginning. According to investigators in Arizona, the last confirmed time anyone saw Nancy Guthrie was during what should have been a completely normal day. Friends say nothing about her behavior seemed unusual. There were no warnings, no strange messages, no indication that she was planning to leave or disappear. When family members realized they could not reach her, concern quickly grew. Calls went unanswered. Messages were never opened. That was the moment loved ones knew something was seriously wrong. Authorities soon stepped in. Under the leadership of Sheriff Chris Nanos, investigators began piecing together Nancy's final known movements. Detectives started interviewing people close to her, checking surveillance cameras, reviewing phone records, and examining areas she was known to visit. Search teams were also sent out to scan locations that could potentially hold clues. Volunteers joined the effort, hoping even the smallest discovery could help move the investigation forward. But as days turned into weeks, frustration began to grow. 38 days without answers is a long time in any missing person case. Investigators know that the first few days are often the most critical. The longer someone is missing without a trace, the harder it can become to find clear evidence of what happened. Then something else added more tension to the situation. The $1.35 million lawsuit connected to Sheriff Nanos started drawing public attention. While the legal complaint focuses on issues surrounding the investigation, some observers fear it could create distractions at a time when all focus should be on locating Nancy. Legal analysts say lawsuits against officials during an active case can lead to internal reviews, legal consultations, and additional pressure on investigators. And that's where the situation becomes complicated. Crime analyst Nancy Grace has been closely following the case. She pointed out that when legal battles appear during an investigation, it can spark confusion in the public and sometimes even affect how information is released. But despite all the noise surrounding the lawsuit, investigators say their main priority remains the same: finding Nancy and bringing answers to her family. Still, one question continues to haunt everyone following the case. What exactly happened in the hours before Nancy Guthrie disappeared? Because according to investigators, there may be a critical gap in the timeline that could explain everything. And in the next part, we're going to look at the strange details surrounding Nancy's last known movements, including the moments investigators say don't quite add up. For weeks now, the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie has left investigators and the public searching for answers. What began as a missing person case in Arizona quickly grew into a story filled with uncertainty, legal tension, and national attention. Authorities, led by Sheriff Chris Nanos, continued to review every possible lead connected to the case. Detectives examined phone records, spoke with people close to Nancy, and checked surveillance footage from locations she was known to visit. Search teams and volunteers also combed through surrounding areas, hoping to find anything that could point to where she might have gone. Despite all these efforts, the case has remained difficult. Weeks passed without a confirmed sighting, and investigators were left trying to fill in the missing pieces of Nancy's final known movements. At the same time, a major legal twist added more controversy to the situation. Sheriff Nanos became connected to a $1.35 million lawsuit, which drew public attention and sparked discussions about how legal battles can sometimes complicate ongoing investigations. Crime analyst Nancy Grace weighed in on the situation, emphasizing that missing person cases require focus and urgency, especially in the early stages. According to her, every hour matters when investigators are trying to locate someone who has disappeared without a trace. For Nancy's family and loved ones, however, the focus has never changed. Their only hope is to find answers about what happened and to bring Nancy home. Investigators continue to ask the public for help. Even the smallest piece of information, something that may seem unimportant, could help fill in the gaps and move the case forward. Cases like this remind us how quickly an ordinary day can turn into a mystery that affects an entire community. If you've been following this story with me, type CT in the comments so I know you stayed until the end. Also, let me know where you're watching from, because these discussions bring people together from all over the world. And if you want more real-life crime stories and updates like this, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next video.
So, the vehicles in and around Nancy Guthrie's home the night she was kidnapped, if a jammer was used, it could jam the car's GPS. So now we can't track it. It's essentially become a vanishing car.
It does. It does become a vanishing car. It's as if it did not exist in those locations.
Dave Mack, let's nail down the time these cars went by, starting at, this is the night of Nancy's kidnapping, 1:34 a.m., I believe, 1:34 a.m. What happens?
Right. Okay. At 1:34 a.m., a car is spotted moving east to west towards home. Then, at 1:41 a.m., a car going west to east away from Nancy Guthrie's home. Now, at 1:47, that's the Nest camera being disabled on the front porch that we've seen. 2:12 a.m., that's when the motion detector inside the house was detected. At 2:28, Nancy Guthrie's pacemaker disconnected from her Apple Watch. Then, 2:52 a.m., another vehicle seen moving east to west towards Nancy's home. So, as we're looking at this timeline, Nancy, there's a thought that we've got a vehicle moving towards Nancy's house, dropping off potential suspect, then leaving, returning to the area.
Well, he's right. To Brian Fitzgibbon's getaway car, and that's certainly used in a very loose sense of the definition. They're not going to just sit right outside of Nancy Guthrie's home while the kidnapper goes in. That car, the vehicle, is not going to be right there and citable. It's going to be off-site for a portion of the time anyway, until it comes back to get the perp and Mrs. Guthrie. So what do you make of these times and the fact that if that jammer had been used? Guys, let's see the video of what we believe may be a jammer on the porch guy's pocket. That jammer, as Heather has told us, can also jam the GPS on. So what do these times mean to you? 1:34, 1:41, 47, 2:12, 2:28, 2:52 a.m. in Nancy's neighborhood.
Yes, so I think it's important to frame it with the fact that we have a pretty solid timeline about what occurred at Mrs. Guthrie's home. The first time someone's seen by the camera to the time that her pacemaker disconnects from her phone. And that was a roughly 40 some odd minute period. When we look at the timeline derived from the videos of these vehicles, I think what stands out is that it almost fits in, right? That, the vehicles passing, coming towards Mrs. Guthrie's home and then going away from it, would align with potentially this subject and another individual being dropped off. And then once they finish whatever they've done inside the residence to prepare her to move, they now pick them up and leave. So I think that's the thing that stands out to me, is that it does align with the known timeline that we have.
And of course, Brian Fitzgibbons, this video is from our friends at Fox News. Brian, they may very well have left from an alternate route instead of going back and forth the same way. That's how Molly Tippett's killer was found. Video of his vehicle as he approached her. She's a co-ed, studying that evening, went out for a jog, and the perp kept approaching her in his vehicle, going back and forth and using the same route. And because of that, distinctive markings on his vehicle were identified in the cam, and that's how they found him. So it's very possible the perp used a different exit route as opposed to the entry route, and could have gone back and forth multiple times. A drop-off, a leave, a return, a leave, a return to get Nancy Guthrie and the perp, and then leave through a different route. In fact, I would expect them to use a second route to leave.
Yeah, very possible. And there's plenty of opportunity. If you take a look at the map of that neighborhood, there are multiple routes that they could have used to egress from that location.
Any of these routes would have worked. And having dealt with many, many getaway cars from many, many different types of felonies, I guarantee, before they went in. Now, if you look at the timeline that Dave Mack was discussing, the last time a car was sighted on the cam we're showing you from our friends at Fox, the vehicle was heading back toward Nancy's house. Now, take into account everything Brian Fitzgibbons told you and we've discussed. Going back to Nancy's to get Nancy and the perp and then leave from an alternate route would make perfect sense. Annie Guthrie and her family have been subjected to a lot of social media attacks, even suggesting that Annie Guthrie is the ported. Lingering questions around why one of their family vehicles was impounded. Joining us now, a face you know well, Chris McDonough, former homicide detective, now the star of The Interview Room on YouTube. Chris McDonough, thank you for being with us. Chris, I want to talk about the vehicle, the fact that it was seized, it was completely taken apart, and that took some time to put it back together. What's happening?
There could be some, hey, this is a big time problem here. Let's put it back together. And, we used to, every agency in the county has a risk management group, right? And it's those people that show up and after the cops had, kick the door down and say, hey, here's a check for your damages, if, they were in the wrong. Okay. But if they were in the right and the probable cause was there, they're just going to say, sorry, here, don't sell dope out of your, you know.
I see what you're saying, McDonough. So, bottom line, they take the whole vehicle apart looking for evidence such as fiber, hair, blood. A lot of that would be found in the car anyway. To Brian Fitzgibbons joining us, USPA Nationwide Security, you would expect to find Nancy Guthrie's DNA in the car because she's ridden in the Annie Guthrie car many times. So you're going to find hair, DNA, fibers, and so forth. But that would not be unusual. But they're probably also looked at the time for blood, which might be unusual, maybe even for soil. So when you have to take apart a car like that, you literally take it apart. I mean, they may be using an MVAC, which is used on upholstery, to get minuscule DNA. And you do have to take the car apart, take the seats out, everything to try to find that type of DNA. And it takes a long time.
Yeah, certainly. And I think we have to add in the fact that we, at this point, could be pretty certain that Mrs. Guthrie was targeted. And they certainly would have been looking through every possible crevice of that vehicle for a tracking device. We know that Annie Guthrie regularly drove Mrs. Guthrie here, there, and elsewhere. So it's very possible that they could have been tearing it apart to try to find a tracking device to see if there was some nefarious application there.
So, bottom line to you, Dave Mack, your story about Annie Guthrie's car.
That the Pima County Sheriff's Office has sent the car to the automotive repair shop for it to be put back together in the same condition it was when they got it from Annie Guthrie, to return it to the family. That's what I'm being told.
Tonight is the vehicle is at Watson Chevrolet being repaired. Not sure why. Anything regarding the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie or her whereabouts, please dial toll-free 800-225-5324. Or, if you wish to remain anonymous, 520-882-7463. There is a $1.2 plus million reward for information leading to the whereabouts of Nancy Guthrie. Reminder, this doesn't an arrest or a conviction. $1.2 plus million reward. Thank you to our guests for being with us tonight, but especially to you for being with us and keeping the search for Nancy Guthrie alive. Nancy Grace signing off for tonight, but I'll see you tomorrow night. And until then, good night, friend.